So welcome to Henrik and Danijel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great for having you here. So as I mentioned, the concert which was planned for 2020 had to be postponed now 2 times, which was very sad, but of course the reason is the same reason as a lot of other things couldn't happen in the last years. So what would you say how the pandemic affected you as a group, you as a person, and maybe also what do you experience, what changed in the last 2 years regarding cultural life and also cultural awareness?
It's a lot of questions at the same time. How it affected us as a group, I think is we can start with that. I think 2020 was a year where all of us were very excited to practice a lot, have a lot of concerts, and maybe try to build up our brand or become better known as a quartet. And we were very excited. And when the pandemic hit, everything just shut down. But me and Danijel, the first thing we started doing was arranging music for the bass quartet. We were thinking that this is just going to last a couple of weeks or something, so we have to use the time now to make more music and get prepared. So we planned a lot of program and arranged a lot of music in the beginning of the pandemic.
No, we had this project with Sara Irving, a violinist from Oslo, from Norway, to have this tour with her, and then we thought it was going to be like, as Henrik said, 2-3 weeks, and then like we were working really hard first week of the pandemic, 2 weeks, and then it was 1 week, 1 month, second month, and they're like, okay, it's not going to happen. And it was devastating for all ensembles in the whole world. I mean, especially the small ensembles that have so many, money to, or like help from the government. So it was really weird time. And the only thing we could have done, as Henrik said, we just had to arrange music for us, and we hope that the whole thing's going to be.
So you also tried, of course, to use the time as good as possible.
As good as possible, yeah.
But for everyone, of course, it's also like the problem with no perspective, or like no time perspective.
Yeah.
When does it end? And like
that was the biggest thing, yeah. But 2020 is supposed to be the year, as Henrik said, like that. We had so many great projects and collaboration, not only with Sara but also with other companies that they're hiring us to do promotions for different things.
How did it come in the first place that you decided to found a bass quartet? I mean, it's not very common.
Not very common.
4 bass players decide, okay, let's do a quartet. So how was the process, or like the idea that you wanted to do that?
Not very common and not very practical. So the idea came way back from started 2001 when I was studying with in Belgrade. My teacher gave me this CD with contrabass double bass quartet called Un'ottava sotto sopra. Now they have different name in the Bass Gang. So I immediately, I was listening to that CD like 100 times. I was like, wow, this is the best thing I ever heard in my life. It was mainstream music played on 4 basses. Not only mainstream, but not only pop, but classical music arranged for the double bass quartet in a very smart and interesting way. And I was like, no, this is the way. I want to have something like that on my own. So we organized one double bass quartet in Belgrade called the Pink Elephant Quartet. Yeah, very... and we played a couple of concerts, and I moved to Sweden, and the whole thing stopped for me, but I think they continued there in Belgium. I think it still exists. In Sweden, 2008 I started to subbing a lot in Swedish radio orchestra, and then the idea came up again with other people from the orchestra there, and we started to jam after the rehearsals, and and then came idea to make the quartet, like, and I think the beginning of the Oslo Fat String Quartet, I can say it started in Stockholm as a fat string quartet. We played a couple of concerts, and I moved to Norway, and we wanted to make something like that here in Norway. The people from there, I got a job in the opera, and it's not often you get chance to play solo. So for us, that was like, okay, now we can have fun and just play solo, just get out of the pit and do something else. And it just started the fat string quartet, but Norwegian version, and we just put it like Oslo Fat String Quartet, and the whole thing started like around 2017, and since then we're still playing a lot.
How was the journey so far? Did you experience like the people were very eager for an ensemble like this, or was it like the first reaction more like, okay, what's that? How do you want to play with 4 contrabasses? That's very weird, or
yes, usually when you say, oh, you have quartet of like only double basses, like the only thing, like, oh, what are you playing? Like,
Yeah.
like, is it like, like the bass, everybody playing the same bass part? I think, like, it's like you said, it's not common that you have like the 4 bass player play, like, because the bass is, as it's big and it's difficult, and like it's a lot of challenges, but like you can do a lot of stuff like there. It's like you can use as a percussion, you can use as a bass, you can use as a solo. There's a lot of possibilities, and so it was to show people that actually it's possible to play beautiful the double bass and interesting and all this thing. Now I think more or less people. We played a couple of concerts now, so that people they're aware about us and like what kind of music and quality we are delivering. So I think it's easier now than 5-6 years ago, definitely.
what is the biggest challenge for a group with like, contrabasses, but also 4 same instruments?
Biggest challenge. I think the biggest challenge playing in the quartet, whichever quartet it is to get matching people, because there's going to be a lot of discussion, a lot of corrections, a lot of debates. So just being able to, discuss, fight a bit in rehearsals, and still be able to make a good product is important. So I think the personalities is definitely a big challenge. When it comes to the instruments, like we talked earlier, that if you have a normal string quartet with 2 violins, viola and cello, you can just play a C major chord and it already sounds beautiful. The instruments put themselves in the range where they want to be, and the balance automatically just fits. And on a bass, I was thinking about this yesterday, that a bass quartet is kind of like having 4 pianos, and then you have to they all play in the same register, and then you still have to separate out the melody, the tonic, and the middle voices, so everything can be perfectly balanced when they're playing kind of on top of each other. And that's probably one of the most difficult parts.
Plus, we have 4 totally different basses, and bass can be really, like,
You mean instrument?
Instrument-wise, yeah.
Yeah.
They can sound so different, and also to match just the color and the sound, starting with that thing, and then intonation and like Henrik said, balance. It's a lot of work, and we're always recording our rehearsals and listening and like trying to get the best balance we can get.
Does the, let's say, the color of the instruments influence or has an influence on the role, or like on the part everyone is playing, or do you think it doesn't matter? Or how do if you, I don't know if you have like first bass or fourth bass, I don't know how it's like in your group, but does it have like an influence on the on that too, or?
I don't think our instrument that we personally use in the quartet influence what part we play, and also the roles kind of swap around. Sometimes, like most of the time, Danijel takes the heavy stuff, which requires the most practice. But it also goes around a bit, and sometimes I play the melody, sometimes Albert plays the melody, and of course then the trick is, as Danijel said, that we have to adapt. So if my bass doesn't sound as direct or sparkly as Daniel's bass, then the whole group has to adjust to the soloistic sound that I'm producing if it's darker or in any different way. The only thing that is like directly influences what part you play is probably Patrick, because he plays a 5-string bass, which is bigger, and then he can also do a lot more lower stuff, which those of us with 4 strings cannot.
So you have like the difference between like 3 4-string basses and 1 5-string basses.
Yeah.
One 5-string bass. Yeah.
It's nice to have the 5th string,
Yeah.
and like a couple of pieces actually requires the low B, the low C, the low D, and it's great to have it. And actually, Patrick plays the most of the time the bass part.
Yeah.
So I
Patrick is like the only one who has like a specific role.
kind of
you could
specific
say.
role, yeah. But he is also, as I said, we try to be like democratic in sharing the solos.
Yeah.
But I mean, we all trying to all play solo in the quartet, because that's the fun. That's why we started to play.
Of course.
To avoid playing bass.
So tell me about the repertoire. How do you choose this, or you choose it, or how is like is there repertoire for the bass quartet?
They are quartet. They are bass quartet music, definitely written specific for bass quartet. But our our repertoire, we're trying not to. I mean, the whole point I said in the beginning is start to play the bass quartet is to play music that we usually don't play. So that means like maybe some mainstream pop music, jazz music, folk, and even if you play classical music, we're trying to make it a little bit more, in a way, funny, like trying to add some kind of humor in that thing. But yeah, maybe you can talk a little bit about the quartet, the bass music.
Yeah, so also because there's not a lot of original music, and a lot of the original music isn't very good as well. We try to always play some of the original music and make the best of it. But that means we have to arrange a lot of music ourselves, which we do a lot. And we also have friends and other bass players who we know who arrange music. We have ordered pieces from them. And when we do it ourselves, it's better because we know how the instruments work, and we also have the opportunity to arrange the music, take it to rehearsal, and then we can see immediately that like this doesn't work. And then like in worst case scenario, we just have to scratch the whole song or piece that we have been working on, or in a good case scenario, we just have to tweak it a bit,
adjust,
yeah, and then we can add stuff and we can make it our own, and we do that a lot.
Just gonna add that, like, even if you buy the music from other people who arrange, like, or like original music that is written for bass quartet, we're usually changing a lot of stuff, because it just doesn't work sometimes for us, for our way of playing and for our like sort of concept.
There are many tricks and things we do, like if stuff are in octaves, if they are unison, if everything is very tied together in spacing of the voices, then we have to really adjust dynamics. If it says 4 for all four of us, and it's like very tied together, it's not going to work. We just know it's not going to work. So some people have to, give way for the others. And then we just have to figure out who is more important.